video you're about to watch is from one of our Spirit schools. Enjoy and please subscribe. Thank you. Father, we just want to thank you for that place in you. That dimensional shift that we can take through the blood of Yeshua, through the fact that he clothes us, that we are living in the light and the fullness of that light, that we can shift from this kingdom of earth into the kingdom of heaven, knowing that it's at hand, understanding that we are spirit beings that have the ability to operate at the speed of light, going beyond time and space, where we live in the spirit, where all things are exposed. Father, where the engagement with the angelic is normal, where we are tonight, and what we see is so many and so much angelic activity, even in this room, Father. We just want to thank you and praise you for the engagement of the angelic, Father. We want to thank you for the seven spirits, Father. We want to thank you and honor the cloud of witnesses, Father. The fact that the men in white linen are engaging with the saints for this time and season, as they're handing over batons and mantles, Father, to propel us in what needs to be established in the earth, what needs to be established according to the scroll that's written for this nation. We're excited. We want to praise and worship you for it, Father. We want to thank you that even in this day, in this night, Father, as the ecclesia, the gathering of the dangerous, beginning to say yes, beginning to understand in our hearts that we will not settle for anything less than what you have destined for us. That we will not settle for less than anything, knowing that there's no compromise, knowing that we operate out of the kingdom of heaven, that Satan and every demonic entity, every power, every principality, every rule of the darkness of this age has no authority, has no place to hold, because we are not of this world, we are not of this planet. Matter of fact, we live in the kingdom of heaven. We are aliens to this world, Father. We have different rules and regulations because we operate out of a different place. We have your glory consume us. We have your wisdom, revelation, knowledge, insight. We have your counsel. We walk with might. We have the fear of the Lord, and we know how to operate with these gifts, with these blessings you've given and bestowed on the ecclesia. We're excited about it. Tonight we just want to thank you, Father, that this generation will not miss anything that you pour into us. We will walk in a new dimension of the fullness of your light, and we want to absolutely glorify and magnify you. You are a majestic, beautiful, glorious God, and we honor you, Yeshua. We love you. We thank you, Yahweh, that we can step into the yacht, the hay, the vat, the hay that we directed to the four faces, the eagle, the ox, the lion, the man. We go into the four different directions, north, south, east, west. And as we blow our breath out into every one of those directions, as we place ourselves in position inside of you through the Holy Spirit, Father, as we begin to understand that our sight changes because we look at it, we look at things through your eyes. Everything in our lives is realigned because what we look at is what you see, and it's different. We want to thank you for that, Father. As we increase in wisdom, I pray for revelation regarding the yes generation tonight. I pray that you'll take everyone listening on Facebook, YouTube, to new heights tonight, Lord. You will bring a blessing to your people, open us up for favor, and change our lives in the direction that our scrolls are supposed to go. We love you. We thank you in the name of Yeshua. Amen. Amen. How are you guys doing? Okay, so for the last couple of weeks, as a matter of fact, tonight is our 6th week, and we've been doing I would say the Joshua generation, but I changed it to a yes generation. And the reason being is at the Spirit School in Denham Springs, I was engaging and speaking to a friend of mine there, Apostle Mike Barnett, and he was sharing with me about an angelic being that they met with that came to engage over there, apostolic base, and his name was Yes Lord. And it's very interesting because in the flood, everything they owned, everything the church had was destroyed, except a little plate, a wooden plate on the pulpit that says Yes Lord. And so as we engage with this angel, we began to realize that it is for a people that says yes. And then I was reminded of a room within the kingdom of heaven that literally has years, as a matter of fact, 500 years of revelation that the Father sent down for the church that was rejected. And it was all piled up and stored in this little room. I say little, but it was a big room. And now the Father said to me that there will be a time, there will be a season where a generation says yes, and I will send all of that into that generation. And I believe with all my heart that we are that generation. We are what the Father wants to ignite. We are what the Father wants to bring to fruition. So I'm excited about this generation. And I say generation, everyone that's alive right now. There's no age restriction in any way, fashion, or form.
Yes.
Exciting, right? Are you guys okay?
Yes, yes. Praise.
Okay, this generation, the Joshua generation, the Yes generation, will be ruthless in the pursuit and the eradication of the enemy. I want to start there tonight because I want to constantly remind God's people of who we are. That the previous age of the church was hand-to-hand combat, eyeball to eyeball. I remember a scripture that I used to preach on, and I love that message. It was a time to war. It was the warrior's attitude. I have it on YouTube. I got it from a pastoral friend of mine, Mark Whittenkamp, which I love and honor, have great respect for. He's an awesome man of God. But in this message, the focus is really on the word war, as Paul speaks to the Corinthians. And they really coming against him. There was a bunch of young ministers arising, coming against Paul, attacking him. Although they couldn't get to his integrity, they couldn't get to his ministry, so they started attacking him physically. Saying that how can someone like you that has these grotesque looks, because he was misformed, disformed, he couldn't speak, he had a speech impediment. Matter of fact, they said that his looks was grotesque. So, as a matter of fact, the church, today's church, wouldn't allow him on the pulpit. That's kind of what they were saying. They couldn't understand, how can someone like you be so powerful? And he got really angry with them, a righteous anger, and he said to them, although I walk in the flesh, but there's one thing I do not do in the flesh, and that's war. And then that was the era for war, and the church did really well in it. Right? Although we really just opened up all kinds of demonic doors because of the lack of authority, because of the lack of purity, because we operated and walk in a dimension of the gifts only instead of living in the Spirit. Now I say that with how can I say, with honor to those who walk in it, because I walked in it. But in the same breath, we only do what we believe is right. We don't always know 100% of what we're doing is 100% correct. But in the same breath, the Father has aligned and realigned the ecclesia to a place where we no longer have to come war against the enemy. We no longer have to come face to face with him. Not that it was, because I want to say this and I want the church to understand it, that the time that we were in before this age started was only that time because that's all we knew. Because this stuff has always been available. Matter of fact, Job started all of this, and it wasn't even something Job started. But they say that Job is part of the first creation before anything else happened. So it's way before we can even begin to understand of heaven. So the court system has always been available, but it's never been taught. And the Bible even tells us that how can my people know if there's not a preacher teaching it or a preacher preaching it? So the church has just never taught it. Now that it's being taught that we don't have to go face to face with the enemy, that we bring the principalities and the powers and the rulers of the darkness of the age into the courtroom where Yahweh is, where the Father is the judge, Yeshua is the advocate, the angels is the witnesses and the testifiers, and the seven spirits is there to witness with us and for us, and the cloud of witnesses is there to be part of the crowd that is for us, to cheer us on. So, and of course, we no longer have to say, I bind you, Satan, and come against it. We can still cast him out. How many of you understand that? So our war is just changed, and it's kind of realigned. So when I say that the Father wants us to literally, as a generation, eradicate the enemy, it's to nullify, destroy, and literally get him to a place where he has no effect in this earth. Now, we don't understand that because for generations, we believe that God has to do that. We believe that God had to come and he had to change the earth, that he had to do this, he had to bring healing, he had to do all this stuff, and we were just his servants, just asking him to do things, and we believed in our hearts that was the right way of doing it. That was what we were taught. Now, I need you to be reminded that I do not go to the Queen of England and say, excuse me, my shoes are dirty, now would you please come clean my shoes for me? You don't do that. Matter of fact, you won't even get to her throne. You won't even get to that place because there's a protocol that needs to be followed. Now, we have done it exactly that way. We have said, Lord, will you please come clean my big fat mess for me? We speak to the King of the universe, the King of kings, the Lord of lords, majestic, almighty God. And we say, would you please come heal my sickness? Will you please come clean my shoes? Will you come clean up this financial mess I'm in? Will you come do this? Will you come do this? And he's saying to you, no, I will not. And we get all like, oh no, because we do this. And I hate to talk about it in public like this, but we say, Lord, will you heal me? And we have faith for him to heal, but then he doesn't heal. And then we say, well, what type of God wouldn't heal someone that has cancer? What type of God wouldn't heal a little baby that is dying of leukemia? What type of God wouldn't heal someone that is busy dying of HIV? What type of God do we have that will have the world suffer and die like that? Why? Because the way we pray is out of protocol. He never told us that he's going to come do it. He said, I did something on the cross that restored humanity back to its original place in me, where I give you all authority, all dominion, where it means that now that you are restored back into the earth as a son, a full, matured son and daughter of the Most High, operate out of the kingdom of heaven, legislate that kingdom into the earth. I have the authority to bring healing, because he doesn't say, go out and heal the sick in my name. He says, and I will heal the sick in my name. He says, you go heal the sick, but be in my name. So it's not a name I speak, it's a name I'm placed in. It's a dimension of the Father and Yeshua and Holy Spirit that I'm resting in because of the knowledge I have of him, the love that I have for him, the oneness that we walk with and have together because of the blood of Yeshua. Right? So when we say that his desire for us is to eradicate the enemy, we have to begin to understand that there's mountains, there's dragons, there's giants that needs to be slain. And I've said this many times. They have been hiding and they have been hidden in the universe for thousands of years, because the sons and the daughters of Yahweh will never go there. We have given things to the enemy, and we have said that that does not belong to us. That belongs to Satan. That belongs to the enemy. That belongs to Satanism. That belongs to New Age. That belongs to Hinduism. That belongs to Taoism. This belongs to this and this. So we have only what is in the Bible. And the Bible is a limited edition because it's a love letter and it's one book. Yet he says that when I do what I did, it will fill up all the libraries of the world. So we need to begin to understand that the Father has given us everything that touches the heavens and the earth from this universe. It's ours. This universe was given to me as the Son of the Most High to have dominion and authority over. So when I begin to eradicate the enemy, it is taking him to where he is and reminding him where his place of residence is. And by the way, it's under my feet. That's the only place he's allowed to be. And then from there, I have the authority to only allow him to do what I allow him to do. He cannot do what he wants to. That is the restoration of the earth through the sons and daughters of the Most High. We have to be ruthless. We have to understand how the courts work. We have to go into it, because I cannot have a knowledge of the courts without the experience of the courts. And I don't mind the body of Christ is busy teaching us how to operate in the courts, and it's all head knowledge. It's fine. But you have to understand, a head knowledge is not going to get you into the courts. The power of the courtroom is the fact that I, as a spirit being, physically go there and physically present myself in the court. If I'm not physically there in the spirit, the court is nullified. That which is petitioned against me will be applied. You guys have to understand. So Ian Clayton makes a statement. He says, if Satan comes before the Father and says, today I wanted 450,000 deaths in England, and there's no man standing in the gap, the Father will give that petition, not because that's what he wants to do, but because that's how the legal right, the legal access the enemy has works. But when there's a son standing in the gap, one with dominion and authority, someone that has the power to rule the earth in Christ through the blood of Yeshua, standing in that place saying no, then all of a sudden everything turns. Satan has no authority, and the judgment to him is death, nullification. That assignment is stripped of its power. Divorce papers are given, and the sons and daughters walk in victory. And we just need to understand that and begin to operate in that place. And the Father's desire for us is to know how these things work. In Joshua 11 it says this. It says, Joshua captured all the cities of these kings and all their kings, and he struck them with the edge of the sword and utterly destroyed them, just as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded, for it was of the Lord to harden their hearts to meet Israel in battle, in order that he might utterly destroy them, that they might receive no mercy, but that he might destroy them just as the Lord had commanded Moses. We need to understand, as much as this happened in the flesh, in the natural, the Father wants the saints, the sons and daughters, the ecclesia of today to walk in that same power. That there is not an enemy that we make friends with. There's not a place in this earth that we walk hand in hand with the enemy in any way, fashion or form. We do not agree with anything, but in the same breath, we have to begin to understand that if I give him anything, that includes a day, that includes sport, that includes whatever we believe belongs to Satan, it immediately eradicates my authority, because I give something in hand, which means I walk with him. Now we don't understand that, but we give him days like what days do we give him? Halloween. We give him Halloween. We give him karate. We give him yoga. We give him all, and believe in our hearts. And I know there's many theological disagreements regarding these things, and I don't want to go into a discussion against this or for this in any way, fashion or form. But Satan has no right to anything. And outside of what he perversed, there has to be a pure of it. And so it's our job as sons and daughters to get to the pure of what Satan has already taken and perverted. Because when dominion was given to the sons and daughters of the earth, and we did not occupy the spaces, Satan started taking what he liked, what he wanted. And as he occupied that space, we began to believe in our heart that it belongs to him. So we need to take it back. Yeah. Just like Moses and Joshua had to go in and destroy every king that was in that kingdom that belonged to them. We have to do the same thing. Every power, every principality, every giant, every dragon has to be slain. Every mountain that is in this earth and the spirit that belongs to us, we have to take back. But we have to do it in wisdom, revelation, knowledge, and understanding. We have to walk with the seven spirits. So when we are sent on assignment to align with these things, we do it the right way. Yes. And it's not going to be according to what we've learned and studied out of the Word of God. Amen. It's going to be what we experience within the kingdom of heaven as the Father teaches us out of the mountain of Zion. Yes. Mount Zion, the mountain of the Lord. Yes. Okay, you guys all right? Yes, yes. This generation will ensure that nothing God commands will be unfinished. Hallelujah. We need to be faithful in carrying out God's commandments. Now, I want you to quickly understand that the Father does not command. There's a time and a season for a commandment, but in the same breath, for the mature sons and daughters, the ecclesia, there's no commandment. And we have to understand that, because I'm no longer a slave. I'm no longer a baby. Okay, as my younger son, my baby, I command him things. Even up to my 10-year-old. I have 11 year and down. So I have to still command them many things. But there'll be a day where I don't have to command my 11-year-old to brush his teeth. Matter of fact, there'll be a day where I don't have to literally threaten him with his life to shower. There'll be a day where he'll go do it himself. So at this point in his life, I have to command him to do certain things. But as we grow out of it, it's no longer a commandment. Right. So although there's commandments, we need to understand the Father's heartbeat's never to command. It's in the time of training and education that he brings us to that place where he has to force us to do things. But when we are the sons and the daughters, and those, it's really, the Bible only talks about sons, but the word sons and what he represents there is the mature ones. So when we start walking at that level, the Father wants us to understand that it's not a commandment, it is what is in my heart. Because he says, I put my desires in your heart. Yeah. So whatever I desire, as a son or the daughter of the ecclesia of the Father, I begin to do the right thing all the time. Yes. Okay. So when I start something, it has to be aligned and it has to be finished. And we have to remind ourselves, just like Yeshua, in the natural, everything looked like it could have been a disaster. He started out with this powerful ministry, and he had thousands following him, and it ended up with one to his side. That's depressing. Well, and his mother, but I mean, that's just logic, right? But that's crazy. And that's after he had the 82, he had the 12, he had the 3, and out of the 3, that was like really, really close, like best buddies. Only one stayed to his side. So in reality, we look at his ministry, and it was a failure.
Wow.
Just what we see with the natural. But most, and I would almost go as far as to say 95% of his ministry was to take place in the supernatural, was in the spirit realm, that which we couldn't see in the natural. Okay, so we need to understand what we're doing in the natural is not as powerful as what we do in the spiritual. Because when we begin to understand, the Father gives us assignments in the spirit that does not align or make any sense in the natural. But when we start something in the spirit, you have to stay focused and on track for that to be aligned. Because for example, when I start walking with the 7 spirits, because there's a cycle, and I know you know this because we've walked with them in that realm, but if there's a cycle that starts, it's a spiral walk upwards, and I will either start with wisdom or I'll start with the Spirit of the Lord, but it'll always start there somewhere. It'll go from the Spirit of the Lord to wisdom, to counsel, to understanding, to might, to the fear of the Lord. But I will walk with all 7 in a season, and the idea is that you bind one of them to you for 21 days, because it's to change your DNA in that time. And in that time of walking with one of the 7 spirits, what they do is they will send you an assignment within the earth. They will align you with certain things that needs to happen according to who you are and that was written on your scroll, to do certain things. And it is my responsibility as a son to work through all of those things, to be reminded that what's on my scroll is the most important thing in my life.
Yes.
But in the same breath, this is spiritual. I'm not talking about your husband. I'm not talking about your wife. I'm not talking about your kids, your family. Because in the eyes of the Father, they come after him. Always.
Yes.
And people might not agree with that, but that's your own problem. I know my daddy. And I know what's first in his life. Me.
Yes.
You guys okay?
Yes, yes.
We need to preserve. In Joshua 11 it says, just as the Lord has commanded Moses his servant, so Moses commanded Joshua, and so Joshua did. He left nothing undone of all that was the Lord, undone of all that which the Lord has commanded Moses. Everything that the Father has placed in your heart is placed there for a reason. Now I want you to understand in the same breath, waiting upon the Lord has been misconstrued completely. Because what on earth are we waiting on the Lord for? He's waiting on you. He's ready. It's like we think for some reason that God's not ready, I have to wait on him. No, he's waiting on you because you're not ready, and he's waiting for you to get ready. So you stop skedaddling around, stop thinking that magically something's going to happen and things are going to start aligning itself. No, you have to align it because you are restored through the blood. And the restoration that you got, you have to bring to your life, to your family, to everything you touch. That's why he says wherever you put your foot, that place belongs to you. We have to do it. That's why if I go to a restaurant and someone waits upon me, it's a whole different ballgame. He does everything, she does everything to please me. You know, you want some water? And then if you put the water down and you start drinking it, that glass never goes empty. Have you noticed it? Well, a good waiter. That glass never goes empty. And I don't always think it's a good waiter. I think it's a bit of I've had enough water now. Thank you. I'm trying to empty the glass, but it just keeps filling up. You know, you haven't even put your fork down yet and the plate's gone. You know, it's like, they're good. They know exactly, and of course also they know, somehow I believe this is how they are trained, but once you put food in your mouth, they will quickly come ask you, is everything okay? Well, just wait until I'm finished swallowing so I can complain. But they know. But that's what it means to serve. It's saying, Lord, what do I need to do? How do I need to do it? Where do I need to get aligned? Where is my next step? What should I do to get to where you want me to be? It's a constant awareness of his presence and who you are as a son in him. Leave no stone unturned. You guys okay?
Yes, yes.
We need to fulfill the word of God. Now, this is the rhema, that which is spoken over you. And I remind you that the scroll is read. Gustav Le Roux, as you enter into your mother's womb, thou shalt do this. And it is read out. It's read out, and I say, yes, Lord. And I go into my mother's womb.
Yes. Come on.
But I have to agree to it. That's the word given to me. Not what man wants me to do. In my training, I can submit, but there'll be a day where I have to go out. Just when I get engaged to my girlfriend and we are to be wed, I step out of my father's house and I go start my own household. But I need to understand the church doesn't do that. Because if you leave, then you're not going to pay your tithes to me anymore. Then I'm going to struggle to pay this building that I pay a fortune for and that I've made my fortress. So I'm just going to try and keep everybody in. Don't go anywhere. Don't start. If you have another vision, that's division. Yeah. No, if that's your mindset, you're a fool. Because my father didn't say, well, you can't go start your own family, because if you start your own family, that's division. Yeah. Wow. That's just logic. I am mature. I have met my destiny. I walk with what I'm supposed to, and that means I have to multiply what comes out of me, or what came out of him. That's the Father's heartbeat. That's the Father's desire.
Yeah, come on. That's good.
We need to fulfill the word. If we are to take the commands of God, the counsel of God, and fulfill them, then we must know them. That's logic, right? That's why the kingdom of heaven is so open for us, especially right now. The Father has literally, and I would say this very boldly, there's portholes almost in every city, in every state, not just through this country, but through nations of the world. Because the angelic has been engaged, and once the angelic is engaged, they come in with streams. And not just the angelic, because now that we are engaging with the men of old, we're engaging with the saints of old, the men in white linen, the cloud of witnesses, they are beginning to engage. So what they're doing is they're giving us batons and mantles of what they were walking in. I had a saint in our nation come to me in the spirit the other day, and of course he died of a disease that I do not want. So when he offered me his mantle, I was like, wait, I want this, I do. He had phenomenal revelation, insight, wisdom, a gift of healing, just phenomenal, man of God. Just absolutely blew my mind. But he has a son in the earth, and I'm thinking, well, why don't you go to your son with this? You know, this is my natural thought. I knew he came to me. I wanted the mantle. I did take it. He gave it to me, and it got explained to me how it works. The disease is not included. Thank you, Jesus. But there's a pursuit that comes with it. Because he wants to see the nation change. Now, I might not be in that nation, but I'm in that nation in the spirit very often. Because it's my nation. I was born there. My blood walks through those streets. Literally. Many car accidents. Many fights. Help me, Jesus.
Right. Wow.
Been there. I remember walking in the street with friends of mine. I was very young, and what we do is we walk and we will kick things. Like, I kicked a bottle, and as I kicked the glass bottle, it broke, and it stuck through my shoe into the side of my heel. And that wound squirted out blood for the whole trip home.
Oh, wow.
That's my hometown, little place called Western area. My blood is in the streets, physically. I long to work in that place in the spirit. I don't want to be there in the physical, in any way, fashion, or form. My sister lives there, my cousins live there, or my nieces and my nephews live there, my brother-in-law, which I love, lives there, and I want to be there in the spirit to realign that place. But I don't have to physically be there anymore. In the old days, in the old understanding is I have to physically be in a place to be doing anything physical there to align it. But because I'm a spirit being, I can go anywhere, do anything. Intercession has changed because I don't have to pray to God, although of course I do, don't misunderstand me. But I'm a spirit being that goes into a place and with the power and the presence and the Spirit of Yahweh, align things according to the authority and dominion given to me.
Yes.
You guys okay?
Yes.
This generation will bring the next generation into their full inheritance and rest. See, I look at Ian Clayton, Justin Abraham, and although these men are still really touching the fragments of what the Father wants us to lead in. They started it. Now, I only mentioned two. There's many others. Grant and Samantha Mahoney. We've got the smaller generations like Jane Schroeder and Stephen McGee, and then you've got the higher generation like Nancy Cohen, Heidi Baker, you've got Patricia King, Paul Keith Davis. Some of these men have already died of old age. I'm not too sure what the specific one I'm thinking of. Anyway, there's men that's already paved the way, that has literally opened up the portholes for us already. So this generation has already got an inheritance from these men, has already taken some of what they have left behind as they were propelled forward so that we can begin to walk in what's already made available for us. So this generation already has that inheritance that the previous generation, now I say previous generation only but because they are older, but I look at older in the spirit, not in the natural. Right? They've been walking in this for longer. I look at a friend of mine, which I love very much and honor excessively, Aaron Smith. He has been doing this for 12 years. Yes. And he has not once tried to explain it. No. Because I'm going to understand, if I'm going to try and explain this to everybody, I'm never going to get to what the Father wants me to do. Because everybody is going to, well, what do you, I don't understand what the seven thunders is. I don't know the seven spirits. I don't understand this. But that's not his calling. You know, when Ian Clayton speaks, he speaks directly out of the heavens. And he brews on one revelation for 5 years before he shares it with the ecclesia. Wow. But then it's already been in the earth for that long. That's once he shares it, it literally opens up a paved road for us to walk in. It's exciting. So that's what that generation in the spirit has already done for it. Ian Clayton has been walking in this for 38 years. Now, it might be more now. I've been doing this for 6 years. So I'm part of the generation that has been poured into. So my responsibility is to pour in to the next generation. Yes. You guys. Yes. So Joshua took the whole land according to all that the Lord has spoken to Moses. And Joshua gave it for inheritance to Israel according to their divisions by their tribes. Thus the land had rest from war. Isn't that the heart of the Father? Let us stop having this mentality that I have to come against the enemy. Agree with him. Agree with him. It eliminates his power. Yes. You know, as a fighting, see, we have had this fighting mentality. You know, Satan comes against you and you're like, really, seriously? You want to come against me? Do you know who I am? How dare you? I bind you. Karababaku shaku. And we do all kinds of war. And before we know it, we're on our asses. Or should I say our donkeys, beaten down to the ground. The body of Christ have had great power, but we've always been attacked. We've always been under attack. It's like the gates of heaven did not prevail. Right. That's unbiblical. It's the gates of hell that shouldn't prevail. It's Satan that should be running as the saints come closer. And not because we are fighting him, but because we're walking in our full authority as who we are. Yes. How you guys doing? He took everything that was promised, the whole of the land, and gave it to the next generation. Now, this generation is not even fully walking in what's been left for us. Now, I want to say this, and I want to remind you, it's been left since the very beginning of creation. It's not when Yeshua died on the cross, because the Lamb was slain before the foundations of the earth. So it's always been available. But if you don't believe that something is open for you, you can't go into it. And I always say that if I've got $20 in my pocket and I drive with my car and I run out of gas and I don't know about the $20 in my pocket, I'm going to understand I have no money. Right. And I'm going to phone someone to come help me. They're going to come and drive from their house to come help me. And by the time they get there, I'm going to find the $20 and realize, oh, but I had money all the time. Wow. I didn't need their help. Wow. It's understanding that Enoch engaged into a dimension that wasn't available according to our perception. Right? David said things that wasn't even biblically supposed to be said yet because the Holy Spirit wasn't given yet, but was he? You know, there was realms that was always open, but we never realized it was open because, see, we believe in our heart that Jesus had to come in the flesh for it to be real. But how do you understand? He only came in the flesh so that we can understand what happened. That we can, through my soul, because that's what we dominantly was, is soulish, with a body and a spirit. And the soul just drew life from the spirit because the spirit wasn't really functioning. Who eats of the tree of good and evil shall surely die. So the Father had to show us something physical so that my soul can perceive what the Spirit has already known. Same with the bread, same with the water. I don't need to eat the bread and drink the wine because my spirit knows that engagement. But my soul is the key to me receiving and walking in the fullness of what's in the Spirit. Because if my soul doesn't believe it, I'm not going to receive it. You guys understand?
Yes.
In Matthew it says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. For I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Now, I know we all know this because I've said it a million times, but his yoke wasn't something he placed on an ox. His yoke was his teaching. His yoke was his theology. His yoke was that which his rabbi taught him, but because he was a rabbi with authority, he did not have to teach the yoke that was given to him. He could take his own yoke upon himself, which means he could take what was taught and interpret it through his own knowledge. And in any given city, there would not be more than 3 rabbis with authority. And he was one of them. So when he says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, he's saying, listen, step into me and eat of me. Drink of me, like the priests. And I'm sure we know this, but the veil was a very thick material. And the reason it was so thick was because after every priest's death, that garment was put upon the veil. It was sewed onto the veil. And of course, the veil didn't have a slit in it. There was no spaces in between the walls. You can't lift it up. It weighed 400 pounds. It wasn't something you could go around. It has to be something supernatural that you walk through. So that was a trans-relocation from the very beginning that has always been available to us. But we don't understand. So the Spirit has to be on the outside for that to be possible. And the priests had to know that. And that's only possible through Yeshua. So that's a reminder that the Lamb was slain before the foundations of the earth. So as the priest walks through the veil to the Holy of Holies, every generational knowledge, every generation's experience, every generation's understanding and revelation, he walks through it and he receives it. So when I'm in Christ, I have the ability to receive infused knowledge from all of the generations, because I remind you, he was the beginning and the reason that creation started, and he was the one that created everything. So from him to where we are today, every generation that was in him, which is everybody, those saints, those men and women of God that walk with the intimacy of what the Father released, we have the ability to gain knowledge and understanding and revelation and insight from them as we are in Christ. See, it's his desire for us to, in the same breath, understand what it means to be humble. I'm humbled by his presence in me. I'm humbled by the fact that he consumes me with his glory and his fire. When I do what I do and someone comes up to me and says, wow, that was amazing, I love it, I have the right to say thank you and not say, but it wasn't me, it was all Jesus. Because his desire is not to take all the credit. I cannot take glory from Yahweh. It is impossible. I don't know who you think you are, but you cannot take glory in any way, fashion, or form from God. Right. It's impossible. Right. If he does not giving it to you, you cannot take it. It's not viable in the natural or the supernatural. Yeah. That's why Yeshua says in John 17, now glorify me like I glorified you. Yeah. Because you can't take glory from God. So the Father's desire is for you to walk in a place where you know who you are. And that is humility. When I know who I am. So when someone comes to really just blow on my horn, if that's what I can say, and have an understanding of what they do. Oh, that was so amazing. You're so amazing. I sometimes think, well, thank you, but, in essence, really, it's not me. But the Father would say, no, say thank you. No matter what they think, because they might wait for you say, well, it was all God. But you don't say that, because that's not honoring God.
Right.
That's dishonoring God. Because his desire for you is to understand who you are. You take that compliment, you take that what he's given, and you go and present it to him in the Spirit. You trade with that on the sea of glass for revelation and insight, for a greater dimension of intimacy with him. Because it's all about that. The humility that he longs for in my heart is to always be in worship and adoration. Always be in communication, and the two-way communication. Not just to supply my needs, not just to forgive my sins.
Wow.
This generation will have supernatural strength for war. Now I want to just go back to Caleb. I love Caleb and Joshua. They, of course, is our example for this generation, right? At the age of 85, he was still going out to fight. Caleb. Matter of fact, at the age of 85, he said to Joshua, I want my mountain. I want what was promised to me now. As a matter of fact, I'm stronger today than what I was when I was 40.
Wow.
Not many 85-year-olds that can say that.
Nope.
I'm sitting in the gym today, and after this Bodyworks deep tissue massage I've been getting, the second one I had on Monday, I have to train differently. So I'm training very high repetitions, very low weights. And I'm sitting on a leg extension machine, and there's a bunch of older men standing around me talking about their ailments and their quails and their aches and pains. And one gentleman walks up to the other and says something, and he's like, talks about his pains and his aches and his suffering and his struggling. And the other one says, but you have to believe it, brother. You have to believe that we're going to go through this pains and stuff. But we have to just deal with it. now that's fine, because that's what we were taught. It's all that we know, that the older I get, the weaker I have to be, because that's normal. I will get sickness, I'll get disease, my body is going to give in, and eventually I'm going to die. Now let me just promise you, without wanting to promise you, it's just something that unfortunately is going to happen because we've been conditioned to believe it. But unless you change the way you think, unless you operate in this time and season and what the Father has brought to this age, the new age, which is the age of Zion, where we live out of a different place. We no longer operate under this law. We operate at a very different dimension out of the laws of Zion, the laws of Jerusalem, from the 24 elders that opens up dimensions and portholes for us to shift into and to live through that understanding into the earth. We will die. But when we begin to believe that my body is supposed to grow with my spirit, with my soul, and change with my spirit, with my soul, then I don't get older, because the sun and the moon is no longer subject. I'm no longer subject to the sun and the moon. But I'm no longer subject to the sun and the moon. I don't live according to my tomorrow or my today. My today might tell me that I have backache. Now, if those who don't know, I was in a car accident on Thursday. So on Thursday, it was a 7-foot drop. I don't know what I did. I don't know. When I became conscious, I was flying through the air, flying over an embankment of a T-junction into the ground. So my nose went in first. The whole car's nose bent upwards. And as I went forward, hit my head, the back of my head against the windscreen. The airbag smashed my face. The seatbelt hurt my chest. I felt my back just click out. It was extremely painful. Immediately, I felt my coccyx, my hip, just immediately there was pain. But then adrenaline took over. I got out of the car eventually, because it's in gear. It doesn't. You can't open the door. And eventually I got out. And the next day I couldn't walk. I couldn't move. That was the Friday. I was in bed the whole day. I couldn't move. Couldn't do anything. Friday night, I was already preaching again. Of course, that's just how I roll. So I was preaching. Someone came in the Spirit and aligned me. Saturday, I was almost 90% better. By Sunday, I was completely better. Monday morning, I did my first spinning class again. And Monday afternoon, I went for another Bodyworks massage. And I have very mild pain. But I've lived at a very mild pain all my life because I'm a bodybuilder. So your muscles are always sore. It's always small, slight type of damage. But I have to believe that there was supernatural healing that took place.
Yes.
We have to begin to understand that the Father's desire for us is to grow younger, that I'm not subject to my today, because that's what I feel like today, but I live out of my tomorrow, and my tomorrow is according to my scroll. I live out of what I should be, not what I am.
Yes, yes.
That's why the Father is always leading me to the prophetic, leading me to live in the Holy Spirit, because the Holy Spirit is literally that dimension of my tomorrow that I can bring in my today. You guys okay? You understand that?
Yes, yes.
Now then, in Joshua 14, give me this hill country about which the Lord spoke on that day, for you heard on that day that Anakim were there, and with great fortified cities. Perhaps the Lord will be with me, and I will drive them out as the Lord has spoken. Now, the idea the Father has here is that I no longer have to submit to what my circumstances bring me to. I operate out of my circumstances, and because I live in the Spirit before I present myself in the earth, what needs to be eliminated is that which is not of God. That's why the judgment of the courts is so important. Now, the idea that the Father has is that I live in my tomorrow today. So that what I see for my tomorrow, I see today. So I go in the courts and I eliminate the obstacles that's in my way. So before I get to my tomorrow, everything that's not supposed to be there is aligned with what my today is supposed to look like according to my tomorrow. Is that okay? You guys get that?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now the Father's desire for me is to begin to understand what this mountain is, because Satan will do everything in his power to erect thrones in the earth and mountains. Now that's what a lot of the saints have had lack for, because of the mountains that's been erected by the demonic, the powers, principalities, and the rules of the darkness of the saints. That's the giants and the dragons that saints don't see. So once it's been seen, it can be eliminated. But because we don't go into those places, planets, into the sun, into the waters, into hidden places, into churches, into schools, where these giants hide themselves away. And I remember, and I've shared this many times, but I go to a meeting in a church, and as I step out of this meeting, the Father takes me into the Spirit, and I immediately see this dragon aligned in the church building. And as I address him, I say to him, this is your last days. And from there, the Father took me into the court of war. I assigned specific strategy from might and how to do it. I remember having counsel with some other men that was in that court. I was assigned to the court of angels. There was angels assigned to what needed to be happening there. I got the Prince of Warring Angel for that city unleashed. It was bound by the church. And as I unwind him, he grew up to about 150, 200 feet. And I remember him saying, we've taken this mountain back, because the Son has reestablished the authority of the mountain to the saints. And I can just look at that city and things are getting to be aligned. And of course that was done and had been done over this region for the last 6 years. Things are changing. And of course this is happening all over the earth, because sons and daughters are beginning to understand what it means to re-erect mountains. Because Satan will steal from the saints through these mountains. So the Father wants to bring in revelation, insight, power. He sends it down. And the mountain is occupied by the power and principalities. So what's given, and of course we sow and trade into demonic trading floors. And I don't want to go into detail with that, but we give financially into things like, well, I want I will be your covering as the apostolic base, and I will overshadow you and cover you, and you need to pay me $1,000 a year. So in essence, what we're doing is I'm sowing what the Father has given me into His mountain, and I'm increasing His mountain, and I block myself from going up to where He's going. I can't go past. So when I trade my finances, I trade that into a demonic trading floor. When I phone a ministry and the answering machine tells me, today, and today only, if you sow $100 into this ministry, we will prophesy a personal prophecy to you that will change your life. And we do it.
Yeah.
What happens is the Father wants to align and He wants to repropel us into a specific place, but these mountains that's directed all over the nation is limited to what the Father wants to bring in, because the demonic has the same understanding and same revelation. How many of you understand that? Satan was an angel. As a matter of fact, he was a covering cherub. So he was standing over the mercy seat and he would touch wings with another cherub, and they would receive revelation, knowledge, insight. It will be poured into them to such a degree that they can't take it anymore. They have to turn and scream, holy, holy, and then all that revelation goes into the earth. But he kept it for himself when he was kicked out. And so did every one of the demonic entities that came with him and went with him. So they have revelation. They can give insight. And I shared it before. In my nation, there was an article in a newspaper once where a witch doctor raised a man from the dead after he's been dead for 4 years. I can't even fathom that.
Yeah, wow.
It's just bones.
Yeah.
The Joshua generation, this generation, will be giant killers, forerunners for the next generation. Now this is probably key, and I've touched base on it right through the night, but these giants, these dragons has to be eliminated. But it's not something I can just go do. We don't walk to and fro. Satan walks to and fro. So it's not something I think, okay, well, I'm going to wake up this morning and I'm going to go sharakabana, and I'm going to start going into the streets in the spirit, and I'm going to see if I can find a dragon. I can see if I can find a giant. I'm going to slay it. No, it's something you do when you walk with the 7 spirits. It's part of assignment. Now, I know it might not be like that for everyone else, but I have found in my life, Ian Clayton, he makes it excessively clear that you do not just go slay a giant. You will open up a doorway for yourself that will bring great destruction to your life. It's not something I just go do. And I believe to be a very responsible person. I don't just go do stuff because I feel that's a good idea. I would love to slay a dragon. Let me go. It's really something in my heart that I believe I was led into through one of the 7 spirits. It wasn't something I just wanted to go do. It was something I led in every time it happened, and it had happened several times. It was something I was led into, and if you speak to people that work in the inner city, speak to people that work in the different cities, that we've done this. Every time we have eliminated a certain giant or dragon, there was a literal flood that comes in and cleansed the city. Now, it caused devastation, and I don't believe that that's the level that the Father wants us to be in, because we're still in practice. We're still in understanding this with its full capacity, but it always has a natural effect to it. Even when the Father sent me into Cape Town to eliminate, there was two dragons and a giant in mountain. It was in the mountain. It was the Table Mountain. It's Table Mountain, and then it's Lion's Head and Devil's Peak. So it's 2 little heads, and then the big mountain top. After I eliminated through the courts and what the Father showed me what needs to happen there, days after, there was the biggest storm that city has ever seen. Wow. Now that cannot be coincidence. This generation will understand that we need to be giant slayers. Yes. We have a sword which enables me to destroy and cut the heads of giants. We need to understand that the court of angels are there to eliminate and to come against these principalities that shadows over our mountains. I don't have to do it, but there'll be a day where the Father entrusts me enough for me to go do it, because I'm going to understand the king's desire is to be on the battlefield. Ask David. It's the king's desire to be on the battlefield. So a couple of months ago, and I don't know how this works, and I don't have biblical proof for this, but the Father, and I know we get a sword. But this was a different sword. It wasn't a sword that I got through the Word. It had nothing to do with the Ephesians 6. It was a physical sword that I got in the Spirit. And I can picture this thing. If I could paint, I would paint it. It's absolutely beautiful. It's massive. I would say the blade is at least 25 centimeters wide. It has 7 edges that comes out from the handle, like this, like that, like that, like that. It's absolutely mind-blowing. It has a thin side at the top, and it comes out into a big triangle point. It has very sharp, it's big, but it's very light. Wow. And for some reason I can fight and know exactly what to do with this sword. And the Father sent me back to all these dragons, all these giants, and cut open their bellies. And out of their bellies comes rubies and diamonds and gold and revelation and power and insight and more than I could ever fathom. And the Father says, I need you to gather this and put it into your mountain to trade for the nations and the cities and the states that this came out of. Because my fullness has to be plowed into the streets once again, so that all that needs to be aligned can be aligned. Yes. And it's this generation, me and you, that's going to run with this. Wow. Caleb drove out from there the 3 sons of Anak. Sheshai. Who calls their son Sheshai? I mean, seriously, you have to be. Anaman and Talmai. Now, that's probably not the right pronunciation in any way, fashion, or form, but deal with it. Go read it for yourselves. Joshua 15, verse 14. The children of Anak. And we need to understand, we have to know and see in the Spirit. That's why I get born again. That's why I get born from above. So that my eyes can open and I can see. Once I see, nothing gets away. There's a dimension of growth that takes place in this generation. A dimension of growth that will take place in the sons and daughters that walks the earth today, that will be beyond the natural. And we are part of that generation, and I'm excited.
Yes.
Let's stand.
Come on.
Father, as a generation that says yes, tonight, everyone in this room, and those that is not here, that should be here, those who are watching on Facebook, that will later watch on YouTube, Father, I pray and ask you that we will begin to arise as sons and daughters to new heights in the Spirit, that we begin to walk in what's given for this time and season, and know that although we say times and seasons, we live out of time and space. We live in the Spirit, and we operate out of the hands of Yahweh. We propel your full will into the earth and all that's there for us. Father, we are so grateful for you. We thank you for the blood of Yeshua. We thank you for your word that we can engage in love. We thank you for who you are, my King. We can step in you and live out of you. I pray for a blessing of everyone in this room, Lord. I pray that you will surround us with your glory and take us deeper and deeper into you. That this generation that says yes will walk in all that's available. Excuse me. And know that it's all about intimacy with you, Yahweh. We love you. Amen.